I learned something important last week. I learned that you, gentle viewers of this channel, really, really love your painkillers. Maybe too much? Who's to say? Not me. So yeah, my video on rainbow fentanyl a little while ago, in that video, I dropped a little aside about how Tylenol, aka acetaminophen, is a trash drug that is basically no better than placebo and has the bonus effect of killing about 500 Americans every year. This is a little nugget of information that I do like to share whenever it's even barely relevant because it's something that not a lot of people know. And when I first learned it, I appreciated having learned that fact. But you guys, many of you were not appreciative, and in fact, you were very sure that I was wrong. MJL wrote, it's a really useful drug clinically. I'm not sure where the trash drug notion comes from. Yes, it's toxic in high doses, but a lot of drugs are. It's a lot better and safer than ibuprofen and other mild pain relievers. And Sunya Vadin writes, the problem for its effectiveness is when it's used for stuff it's not indicated for. If you need a broad, over-the-counter analgesic, ibuprofen all the way. If you need something specifically to target, for example, acute migraine symptoms, you want paracetamol. Its specificity is why it won't work for things like inflammatory pain, musculoskeletal pain, etc. I think it's mostly a problem of confusing people over what it's for with marketing. It is, however, useful for enhancing the effects of other analgesics taken in combination with it, due to its interactions with them, so there's some use for it if used correctly. And Farah Mira says, it feels effective to me even on supposed inflammatory pain. I've been prescribed it for a fever by a doctor once because it can help with inflammation. I've heard that it doesn't work from a medical scientist, but I think perhaps the mechanism is not understood and needs more research. I reckon in this case, placebo is used to hand wave away something we don't understand. That's just a small handful of objections. Alongside, there were some very polite requests asking me to do a video about it. So here is that video. I regret to inform you that all the commenters I just read are wrong. Sorry. First, let me point out that something working for you does not mean that it can't be a placebo. That's part of the definition of a placebo. Let's go over it really quickly with an imaginary situation. Let's say that I have a pill that I think can fix a headache. So to test it, I take 200 people with headaches and I give 100 of them my pill. And I give the other 100 people a sugar pill. And then I wait 2 hours and I ask them if their headaches cleared up. And 59 of the 100 people who took my pill say it absolutely worked for them. Their headaches are gone. So that's not bad, right? My pill helped more than half of the people who took it. That's you, by the way. You were in that group, and now you are a lifelong consumer for my pills. Thank you so much for your business. But hold on. What happened in the other group that took the sugar pill? Well, in that group, 49 of the 100 people who took the sugar pill say that the sugar pill helped their headache go away. They love it. They're wondering where they can go buy more for future headaches. They are lifelong customers of that pill. So that means my pill did do better, but only by 10 people out of 100. So instead of my pill being 59% effective, it's actually only 10% effective. So does that make sense? My pill worked, but only a little bit better than placebo. The people who took the placebo felt just as much that their pill worked. Now for a fun reveal, I lied. I didn't make that example up. Those are the actual statistics found in a Cochrane review that tried to figure out if Tylenol actually helps with tension headaches. I've talked about Cochrane before. To catch you up, they are a British nonprofit that provides gold standard systematic reviews and meta-analyses that serve to sum up the current science on a particular topic. And yeah, in this case, they found that only 10 out of 100 people saw any benefit that could reasonably be attributed to Tylenol. That was across 23 studies that included more than 8,000 subjects. Ibuprofen, for the record, in another Cochrane review, only helped 7 out of 100 people for headaches. So, also not great. That's just tension headaches, of course. Tylenol might do a little bit better for people with migraines, at least according to studies funded by McNeil Consumer Healthcare. That's the Johnson & Johnson subsidiary that makes Tylenol. I'm not being cute here. I really had trouble finding good independent studies specific to how Tylenol works on migraines that were done by anyone other than McNeil Consumer Healthcare. But yes, according to a McNeil Consumer Healthcare paper, 52% of patients who took Tylenol got migraine relief compared to 32% of those who got placebo. I did eventually find a systematic review that came from the Mayo Clinic, which found that Tylenol offered a small potential benefit, though they continue to recommend triptans, which are migraine-specific pain relievers, and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like aspirin, ibuprofen, and naproxen. Technically, by the way, Tylenol is an NSAID, but it's so weak that it isn't categorized as such by doctors. But they recommend those drugs as being the first line of defense for a migraine for most people, since they have a greater effect with fewer immediate adverse side effects. Although they do specifically also point out that Tylenol is long-term toxic to your liver, which I will get to in a bit. Another systematic review looked at Tylenol in combination with aspirin and caffeine, a commonly used cocktail for headaches. They found that that combo did perform better than placebo across several studies, though as you can see, it varied wildly how much better it performed. 4 times better in a few early studies, just a tiny bit better in later studies. Those later studies found 35% of people got better after 2 hours with Tylenol compared to 26% of placebo. Not great. So it might work a little bit for migraines, but probably not as well as the drugs that are actually created to help with migraines. That's why one British medical journal editorial described Tylenol as only having modest efficacy in treating migraines and headaches. And that, I'm sorry to say, is where the good news for Tylenol ends. Yeah, that was the good news. The rest is pretty bleak. To quote from that same BMJ editorial, paracetamol at doses between 500 and 1,000 milligrams is in the least effective quartile of drugs for treating acute postoperative pain. Paracetamol at doses up to 4,000 milligrams daily is ineffective in back pain. Paracetamol at doses up to 4,000 milligrams daily is practically ineffective in arthritis. Though marginally better than placebo, paracetamol has little chance of achieving clinically meaningful benefit in osteoarthritis. No review evidence that paracetamol works for dysmenorrhea, which is period cramps, neck pain, rheumatoid arthritis, or cancer pain. And this has been shown in review after review. Tylenol/acetaminophen/paracetamol is just not very good at helping various types of pain. Toothaches, backaches, surgical pain, colds, you might as well just take a sugar pill. In fact, you would be better off taking the sugar pill because it's safer. As I stated in the previous video, Tylenol is responsible for 500 American deaths every year, but there's way more. Tylenol overdoses are also responsible for 50,000 emergency room visits and 25,000 hospitalizations each year. The only reason why the number of deaths isn't higher is because quick treatment in the hospital can allow a person to survive even severe liver damage. But you don't have to overdose on Tylenol for it to do damage. In clinical trials in chronic pain, patients taking paracetamol were 4 times more likely to have abnormal results on liver function tests than those taking placebo. Acute liver failure leading to registration for transplantation was twice as common in non-overdose paracetamol-exposed patients than with NSAIDs in a large case population study. And a systematic review of observational studies found that compared with people not taking paracetamol, paracetamol use, especially at higher doses, was associated with increased mortality, cardiovascular adverse events, fatal or non-fatal myocardial infarction, stroke or fatal coronary heart disease, gastrointestinal adverse events, gastroduodenal ulcers, and complications such as upper gastrointestinal hemorrhage, an estimated it fucked up the kidneys. Basically, that's what that means. Therapeutic index is a ratio that scientists use to compare a drug's effective dose, how much you need to take to get the benefit, and its toxic dose, how much you need to severely injure you or kill you. And the further those numbers are from each other, the higher the TI, the safer the drug. So, for instance, the opioid remifentanil, not to be confused with its cousin fentanyl, has a TI of 33,000, which is really good. You know, you only need a tiny bit to feel better, but you need a whole hell of a lot to overdose on it. Meanwhile, cocaine has a TI of 15. The amount you take to get high is way closer to the amount that you would take to overdose. So, where in that range does Tylenol fall? It falls down here, below cocaine. Tylenol has a therapeutic index of about 10. And that's actually a pretty optimistic number because I've seen some experts pin it around 3 or 4, especially before they lowered the recommended dose back in 2011. All of this isn't to say that other painkillers don't have their own drawbacks. I can't take ibuprofen, for instance, and other similar drugs because they tend to aggravate a painful chronic condition I have called interstitial cystitis. So when I have a headache or a backache, I just deal with it. I just put up with it. Lots of people are allergic to various painkillers. NSAIDs tend to aggravate the stomach. So please don't start arguing in the comments about, well, at least it's better than Advil or whatever. There is no universal better. There is only what is right for you and your specific health concerns. I'm not a doctor. I'm definitely not your doctor. I'm not telling you to stop taking Tylenol or any other drug. If it's working for you, if a doctor suggested it, great. I just want you to know what the data says. It's important to be informed. If you've been taking this drug every day because you think it's harmless, since you can just go into Costco and buy an entire bucket of it right off the shelf, maybe it's time that you talk to a doctor about whether or not it's really helping you, because if it's not, the downsides are pretty bad.